Hello, everyone.
Welcome, welcome. This is David Dawei, and I am with a very special guest today, Sun
Yes.
Tzu. Sun Tzu is on the other line. Sun Tzu, are
Back
you
from the grave.
there?
I am here.
Sun Tzu, I am
Hey,
reading your book, The Art of War. I have to say it is quite good book, Sun Tzu.
thank you.
Or can I just
Yeah,
call you Tzu?
yeah, you can call me Zoo. That's fine.
Who let the dogs out? Who? Who?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I
well,
appreciate it.
I'm gonna read chapter 6 of your book, The Art of
Mhm.
War, and maybe you
It-
can fill me in on what you meant when you wrote it. Okay, or maybe the interpretation or the translation will be wrong.
All right, it's been a couple hundred years, but I'll dust up
Yeah,
on it and let's see
yeah.
how much I remember.
Okay, yeah. You're just shaking off the dust.
Hmm.
All right, here we go. Chapter 6: Weak points and strong. That the
Yes.
impact of your army may be like a grindstone dashed against an egg. Use the science of weak points and strong. Whoever is first in the field and awaits the coming of the enemy will be fresh for the fight. Whoever is second in the field and has to hasten to battle will arrive exhausted. Therefore, the clever combatant imposes his will on the enemy, but does not allow the enemy's will to be imposed on him. By holding out advantages to him, he can cause the enemy to approach of his own accord, or by inflicting damage, he can make it impossible for the enemy to draw near. In the first case, he will entice him with a bait. In the second, he will strike at some important point that the enemy will have to defend. If the enemy is taking his ease, harass him. If quietly encamped, force him to move. If well supplied with food, starve him out. Appear at points that the enemy must hasten to defend. March swiftly to places where you are not expected. An army may march great distances without distress if it marches through country where the enemy is not. You can be sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places that are undefended. You can ensure that the safety of your defense if you only hold positions that cannot be attacked. That general is skillful in attack whose opponent does not know what to defend, and he is skillful in defense whose opponent does not know what to attack. He who is skilled in attack flashes forth from the topmost heights of heaven, making it impossible for the enemy to guard against him. This being so, the places that he shall attack are precisely those that the enemy cannot defend. He who is skilled in defense hides in the most secret recesses of the earth, making it impossible for the enemy to estimate his whereabouts. This being so, the places that he shall hold are precisely those that the enemy cannot attack. O divine art of subtlety and secrecy, through you we learn to be invisible, through you inaudible, and hence we can hold the enemy's fate in our hands. You may advance and be absolutely irresistible if you make for the enemy's weak points. You may retire and be safe from pursuit if your movements are more rapid than those of the enemy. If we wish to fight, the enemy can be forced to an engagement even though he be sheltered behind a high rampart and a deep ditch. All we need to do is attack some other place that he will be obliged to relieve. If the enemy is the invading party, we can cut his line of communications and occupy the roads by which he will have to return. If we are the invaders, we may direct our attack against the sovereign himself. If we do not wish to fight, we can prevent the enemy from engaging us, even though the lines of our encampment be merely traced out on the ground. All we need to do is to throw something odd and unaccountable in his way. Tu Mu relates a stratagem of Chuko Liang, who in 149 BC, when occupying Yangping and about to be attacked by Suma, suddenly struck his colors, stopped the beating of the drums, and flung open the city gates showing only a few men engaged in sweeping and sprinkling the ground. This unexpected proceeding had the intended effect, for Suma, suspecting an ambush, actually drew off his army and retreated. By discovering the enemy's dispositions and remaining invisible ourselves, we can keep our forces concentrated, while the enemy's must be divided. If the enemy's dispositions are visible, we can make for him in one body, whereas our own dispositions keeping secret, the enemy will be obliged to divide his forces in order to guard against attack from every quarter. We can form a single united body, while the enemy must split up into fractions. Hence, there will be a whole pitted against separate parts of a whole, which means that we shall be many to the enemy's few. And if we are able thus to attack an inferior force with a superior one, our opponents will be in dire straits. The spot where we intend to fight must not be made known, for then the enemy will have to prepare against a possible attack at several different points. And his forces being thus distributed in many directions, the numbers we shall have to face at any given point will be proportionately few. For should the enemy strengthen his van, he will weaken his rear. Should he strengthen his rear, he will weaken his van. Should he strengthen his left, he will weaken his right. Should he strengthen his right, he will weaken his left. If he sends reinforcements everywhere, he will be weak everywhere. Numerical weakness comes from having to prepare against possible attacks. Numerical strength from compelling our adversary to make these preparations against us. Knowing the place and the time of the coming battle, we may concentrate from the greatest distances in order to fight. But if neither time nor place be known, then the left wing will be impotent to succor the right equally impotent to succor the left, the van unable to relieve the rear, or the rear to support the van. How much more so if the farthest positions of the army are almost 100 miles apart, and even the nearest are separated by several miles. Though the enemy be stronger in numbers, we may prevent him from fighting, scheme so as to discover his plans and the likelihood of their success. Rouse him and learn the principle of his activity or inactivity. Force him to reveal himself so as to find out his vulnerable spots. Carefully compare the opposing army with your own so that you may know where strength is superabundant and where it is deficient. In making tactical dispositions, the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal them. Conceal your dispositions, and you will be safe from the prying of the subtlest spies, from the machinations of the wisest brains. What the multitude cannot comprehend is how victory may be produced for them out of the enemy's own tactics. All men can see the individual tactics necessary to conquer, but almost no one can see the strategy out of which total victory is evolved. Military tactics are like unto water, for water in its natural course runs away from high places and hastens downward. So in war, the way is to avoid what is strong and to strike at what is weak. Water shapes its course according to the nature of the ground over which it flows. The soldier works out his victory in relation to the foe whom he is facing. Therefore, just as water retains no constant shape, so in warfare there are no constant conditions. The 5 elements, water, fire, wood, metal, earth, are not always equally predominant. The 4 seasons make way for each other in turn. There are short days and long. The moon has its periods of waning and waxing. He who can modify his tactics in relation to his opponent and thereby succeed in winning may be called a heaven-born captain. That is the end of chapter 6 of The Art of War.
Lots of good info. It struck me that I looked this up. This was written in 5th century BC, so before 500 years, right before Jesus. Yep. It's crazy. It's crazy to me how like useful the advice is given the time period. Like, I don't know. That's my first observation. I think of like the Revolutionary War or like the Napoleon era, where there was like honor and there's a certain like code to battle, supposedly. And this is basically saying like water retains no shape, warfare, there's no constant conditions. Like, it doesn't matter. You need to scheme, you need to deceive the enemy. Like, there's no code of honor, seemingly, what he's talking about, which is crazy because it's so old, but it's really true. So I found that fascinating.
Just win, baby.
Yeah, just win. There's no rules, there's no honor,
You're either
there's no
alive
code
or
of
you're dead.
ethics. Right. So that was interesting to me.
And it's what you can focus on that you can control. Listen, if you're on the Titanic, weeping about the Titanic is a waste of time and energy. It's gone.
True.
Am I making myself clear?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
You have to focus on what you can control. Focus on those steps. Use your energy wisely.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah. Yep. No, it's good. I appreciate that. Peace out. Good stuff. All right. Talk soon.
Bye, Benny.
All right. Bye.